For Sunday, October 8th, you've found the Georgia Gang. Topping our agenda today, the mayoral probe in Atlanta City Hall widens. There's movement in the race for Atlanta mayor. And how about the city of Amazon? Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia Gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
And we're glad you could be with us. This is Indigenous Peoples Weekend.
Uh-oh.
You thought it was something else. I'll explain that to you later on the broadcast. But happy Indigenous Peoples Day. That's tomorrow. Today we are looking at the beginnings of, we don't know what, but we're going to call it Tropical Storm Nate. Might be moving some bad weather into our area. We're also thinking about the victims in the awful shooting in Las Vegas. We'll leave that for the national programs. We begin right here at home, where the pace of the corruption investigation at Atlanta City Hall seems to have picked up. Fox 5's Dale Russell reporting this week on yet another contractor in the gun sights of federal prosecutors. And we can talk about that because, Jeff, I wasn't here last week. Phil, thank you for filling in. Jeff, you didn't think that the former city purchasing agent, Adam Smith, had much more to give. You didn't think it went further up. And here we have what appears to be a connection between him and a company called Prad, or Prod, P-R-A-D. Jeff Jafaris was raided. Turns out he's a major funder of city council candidates. Dale Russell and the I-team have been all over this and advanced the story. It looks like the thing is spreading, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, it looks, but we certainly know that the former procurement officer is talking to the feds. That was part of his deal with them, and he's going to give all the information that he has. And it might be other contractors that he's had relationships with that were illegal or inappropriate. And this could, I think is the operative word, be one of those. I have a problem with...
Could is the operative word in all this.
Could is the operative word in all of this. I just have a serious problem with these kinds of public raids and public disclosures. I think that it does serious...
We don't want them to be secret.
It does serious damage to a presumption of innocence. I don't know this individual, don't know anything about him, but I do know some people who've been hurt badly by these kinds of public raids when they were completely innocent. Consider, for instance, the case of Kevin Ross. In an age of the internet, where everything goes viral, it's very, very difficult to repair these reputations and to ensure that someone does, in fact, have a presumption of innocence in a court of law as well as in the court of public opinion.
All right, on the matter of law, I'm going to agree with you. But, Alexis, I turn to you because this Jeff Jafaris spread the campaign cash around among a lot of council people. One of the leading candidates for mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, received $25,000 for a mayor's race. He also gave funds to C.T. Martin, who's running for city council president, and Michael Julian Bond. All of them say they're going to return the money, but you don't really lavish a lot of money on council candidates, I think, unless you're doing business with the city, particularly at the airport.
Well, I think that it's been...
He had pieces of several airport bids. This fellow did.
Right. And he was involved apparently in representing a new firm that was bidding on some contracts for the airport. But the thing is, contractors have always donated to the political campaigns. I mean, that's what got Burl Ellis in trouble, because he was managing the bids as well as, asking for them. And but in the city of Atlanta, there's always been a separation of that. But if they make millions of dollars off the city, they want to support the candidates. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean there's a pay to play.
Phil, I'm going to let you kind of have the last word on this, because this is tied to airport contracts, a favorite topic of yours. And the fact is, Mayor Kasim Reed has been in a hurry to rebid these contracts before he left office. I think that created kind of a frenzy of contributions and perhaps illegal acts as given by the FBI's raid on this architectural firm, Prad.
Well, that's right. The whole history of this, from several mayors going right on up to Kasim Reed, is the whole contracting business, especially at the airport, has been extremely seedy. There have been court cases, lawsuits, and the degree of separation is not there. This is the only major city in the United States that doesn't have an airport authority that can work on contracts. It's controlled by the mayor. governor's office. And we all know this, we've all followed it, and that's where a problem is. And even if people are as innocent as the driven snow, it's a problem with people seeing an advantage. And of course, now we have bribery. You know, we've had those 2 convictions of E.R. Mitchell and another contractor. You've brought up now what we're talking about with Adam Smith, the procurement officer.
There have been convictions. Obviously, there were guilty pleas. They entered guilty pleas.
You agree there's a conspiracy?
Of conspiracy.
There is a conspiracy.
They pled to conspiracy, hoping to cooperate and not to receive as much jail time. What we've not seen to date is a charge of bribery or a bribery charge, other than the case, obviously, with Adam Smith. Adam Smith is the example when it was discovered that there was anything untoward. He'd been there since 2004, if I'm not mistaken, in a previous mayoral administration. But when it was discovered that there was anything untoward as it pertained to Adam Smith, he was escorted out of the building, never to return.
And you're correct. but let's go back a year, and this is a huge problem. Remember the name Miguel Southwell? He was the airport general manager. Why did he leave? Why was he fired by the mayor? He refused to sign contracts. He was not comfortable with them. This is all in the public domain. It's been reported. That's a signal right there, Jeff. That's a signal that that's a problem.
If I'm not mistaken, he retracted all of those statements instead of being sued.
The mayor and he agreed. The mayor and he agreed that the whole situation.
Here's the fact of the matter. You're talking about money in politics, essentially, as it pertains to Jeff Faris and a lot of other people, right? But we see it everywhere. We don't just see it on the local level. We don't just see it at the airport field. We see it on the state level. There's a front page story about Casey Cagle and the money that he's getting from contractors at the state level. We see it at the federal level.
We're talking about a federal probe. We're talking about a federal probe. Money in politics is always going to be there. We're talking about the criminal actions here.
Jeff, I want the last word. You said last week, "Boy, I'm dangerous when I get to just watch the program." And you said you didn't think it went any further. Well, here Dale Russell and the I-team have advanced the story one more notch. So now we have 2 contractors under indictment, just to put this in perspective. Now we have a 3rd one in the eye of the storm. This would be Jafaris, whatever his name is. And the reporting isn't done, and the mayor's race is here. So that allows me to transition to the fact that, as I mentioned a moment ago, Keisha Lance Bottoms, C.T. Martin, and Michael Julian Bond all say they'll give their campaign contributions to this one fella back. We had news in the mayor's race this week in the sense that a poll elsewhere said that Keisha Lance Bottoms is making a move. She's separated herself from the pack. Mary Norwood in the lead at about 25%. Keisha Lance Bottoms moving up to 15%. The rest of them from 10 and down, including the city council president, Cesar Mitchell. Tell me, Alexis, how you see this for starters.
Well,
the movement.
The movement is very interesting. I think that people are beginning to pay attention, is the main thing, to who's running and where we are in the race, because early voting starts, what, on the 16th? Is that next week?
October 16th, it's on us.
It's right here. So people are beginning to zero in and focus. I think Mary Norwood is well known around the city and has used the Maynard Jackson.
Did you say Mayor Norwood?
Mary, what's her name?
I'm teasing.
Oh, you're teasing me. Okay. She has used the Maynard Jackson Neighborhood Planning Unit machine to her great advantage, and because she's been elected citywide this time and before. She came in second to Mayor Kasim Reed in the first, what was that, 2007 election. Maybe I'm getting my years mixed up, but
that's right.
And she continues to utilize that focus, and what that is the neighborhood planning unit breaks the city down into neighborhoods, and they each have a chair, and they each do things, and she's been very involved with them, so she has a great deal of support. The Keisha Lance Bottoms has gone on television now. She's got some spots up, and she's coming forward.
Hold it right there, because now we can get into strategy. That's a good setup with Norwood in the lead and Bottoms moving up a little bit. When we come back, we're going to talk about the potential strategies that some of the candidates might use as we move toward early voting October 16th, literally right around the corner. Where'd that come from? See you in a minute.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
So back to that Atlanta mayor's race where Keisha Lance Bottoms, as Alexis just said, is on television, effective ads about how she came up from nothing. She is an attractive figure on television. Peter Amon is on television occasionally, but sometimes not in the best light. He had a press conference this past week in which he complained about Mary Norwood using campaign staffers to political staffers to campaign.
And there really was nothing to that. I think.
But worse was he came across kind of whiny. I
he
thought
did.
He was a business guy.
He did, and talking about being a business guy.
Because he's not a politician, he's like a business guy.
Well, you talk about returning money in the other segment that we just had from this apparently shady vendor. You've got Peter Ammon, and this always has stunned me, as getting contributions from Rick Smith of Equifax, and we all know how we have been cheated by Equifax.
5 million endorsements.
Yes, and it's stunning, and I'm wondering, is he going to return his campaign contributions? I don't know why you'd want to be close to someone like that.
The trouble with Peter Ammon is he's not contending. He's in that second tier.
It's interesting.
It's at 7%, but I want to say something. He's got 4 people at 7%. This poll's got a margin of error of 4.5%, 5%.
But it's
and
much
I
like
think
the
that
others.
it's even greater than that, because 72% of the people in this poll were surveyed on landlines. And what you're talking about when you do that is essentially older voters. I mean, younger people just don't own landlines,
That's
right?
right.
And you're missing that component, it seems to me, of the voting population out there. And so I think that this poll is skewed. And what it could mean, if they're overweighting older voters, is that Mary's numbers could be actually higher because she does better with voters over 50.
Right.
And it could be the same with other folks. For instance, internal polls, a couple of internal polls out there have Keisha Lance Bottoms not at 15 but at 18. She's raised over $500,000.
Well,
She's on TV. She's clearly surging in this race.
It's a race for a runoff. Now let's talk strategy.
Well, it's fluid. I think we should point out it's a fluid race, and we've seen these things before. and with regard to polling, I'm curious as to how much online interviews were done, how much was done. You're right about the landline.
You know, we've been hurt singed recently
with
so
polling.
many times,
Yeah.
right? I mean, whether it was Hillary and Trump or the Ossoff race, right, where we thought that he was, polling showed that he was going to win that.
Let me make one
we have
last
to take
point.
with a grain of salt.
Make it quick because I want to go to strategy.
I think that the grassroots support is something, as analysts, we have to look at. And I'm wondering, I don't think some of them have that grassroots support. Certainly Mary does. Does Keisha Lance Bottoms? Probably, because she's so connected with Mayor Reed. And who are the others that may have does Caesar Mitchell have that grassroots?
Well,
I think he still could be a contender if I could look in the crystal ball.
I think he's definitely a contender. He's been good on raising money, and one of the things that he has been accumulating over the time are these endorsements from all these organizations and unions. He just got the Georgia Association of Black Women Attorneys endorsement this week, which
Plus
is
he's got the old lions, Andy Young and that crowd.
Right, the civil rights guys. But I thought it was interesting that he got the Black Women Attorneys Group endorsement rather than Keisha.
And to your point, too, candidate Kathy Willard, surprisingly to me,
Kathy's raised $1 million.
$1 million.
Right.
But let's go to the strategy. So we have Keisha Lance Bottoms, very pointedly in her commercial saying she is the Democrat.
The Democrat. That's
In the meantime, social media is being used on her behalf to say that Mary Norwood is a Republican, which is worse than being Trump in the city of Atlanta, I guess.
But you know where the swing vote is? Buckhead, the last I looked, is still in the city of Atlanta, and they actually have a Republican state representative that they elect.
But the strategy.
So you don't try to. I think it's a mistake.
They're not going to play race. They're going to play party.
Well, you don't try to knife the Republicans in the city of Atlanta because they're swing voters, and you need. I think it's a mistake.
Well, I don't know if it's a mistake in that you had the Georgia Democratic Party come out and actually build a website that's now online. Calling her a Republican and all of her Republican associations and all of that. The fact of the matter is that she has a very broad cross-section of support across the city of Atlanta, and you just can't deny it. I mean, when you look at retail politicians, Mary Norwood is hard to beat. She's an expert. She's done it for decades. She's good at it.
And she crosses party lines.
And if you look at not only party lines but racial lines, right? So Keisha Lance Bottoms is tops among African American voters, but who's second? It's not another black candidate. It's Mary Norwood.
So what's going to happen here, in my view? Caesar Mitchell and the other candidates who are from 10% down, somebody's going to have to step out. There's no point in attacking Mary Norwood yet because she's going to be in a runoff, it looks like. They're going to have to attack Keisha Lance Bottoms. Don't you see that coming?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure that's going to happen because one thing, she is a black woman. And the black woman vote is very strong in Atlanta, and I think that it would be a mistake to attack her in that way.
In the meantime, one last thought on the campaign. The Atlanta City Council this past week voted to ease the penalties for marijuana use. Less in jail time. You won't go to jail automatically for possessing marijuana. And that was legislation sponsored by another mayoral candidate we haven't mentioned, Kwanzaa Hall. And I got to thinking about it. You know, that's a double-edged sword for Kwanzaa Hall. It gets them a lot of votes in the community that smokes reefer.
No.
But they won't remember to vote.
Oh, stop.
Well, I'll tell you what, just to kind of end that, I noticed that even the police chief of Atlanta had to slap him back a little bit in the media by saying, you know what, you still can be arrested.
You can still be arrested.
And you can still go to jail.
You still have state troopers policing the city.
It's still illegal. It's still illegal.
It's still illegal in the state of Georgia.
So let's be aware of that.
Right.
Well,
and if you're in
when it passed City Council, it got a standing ovation. And I was looking and I said, wait a minute, you're supposed to be kneeling. I'm sorry.
Please.
All right.
You're just terrible.
When we come back, we're going to look at a lot of topics. We're going to have to move very quickly. We're going to start with Amazon, Georgia. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
Now, my colleagues have the capacity to surprise me. They often do. But I suspect, without any preparation here among us, that each of them, when they saw the news that the city of Stonecrest, the brand new city out there in DeKalb County, had offered to create a city of Amazon from some 350 acres of its land, I think each of you said, wow, that's imaginative. Did you not?
Brilliant. And hats off, he's going to be my winner of the week to Jason Larry.
I don't know who came up with the idea. I guess Jason Larry, the mayor?
And the city council out there. I think that it's a brilliant idea. I think that it gives them an edge up. Amazon is looking for a huge, huge tract of land. I think they said 145 acres. They're saying we will de-annex 345 acres. Not only that, but we will we'll introduce legislation so that it will be a city of Amazon.
And Stonecrest will provide the services.
And Stonecrest will provide the services. I mean, does this not make them a player? I think that this ought to make them a player.
They are a player.
Except for transit.
I will say this, though. This is not a new PR idea. I mean,
it's not.
It's not.
It is not.
Way back in the day, have you ever heard of Truth and Consequences, New Mexico? Well, they changed the name of the city. They wanted to get on the TV show, and they wanted to brand themselves. And that's how it started.
Really?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
But let's go back. Truth and Consequences, New Mexico.
I've been there. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're on the Georgia Gang to get information here. Here's vital information. And I think we all should explain that there's a checklist.
Really?
There's a checklist for Amazon, and the checklist for Amazon is obviously are you near infrastructure, the airport, transportation, and so I think we're checking off a lot of these boxes. I think we're a competitor.
I think we're in play, and I hope that the Stonecrest offer is in play as well. You're right. There is not a direct line, but there's a bus line to a train line, and of course that line is on the list of priorities.
Yeah, it is on the list. Don't you think right now, because of the annexation of Emory and all, that the real top priority is the Clifton Road corridor?
Well,
and as you pointed out, Jeff, it's $100 million a mile to construct heavy rail.
It's more than that now. That was 10 years ago. And so, what happens is, as has been explained to me, is that the Stonecrest line now moves up in priority because the Emory line is funded through the city tax.
Oh.
Yeah. And so it's now higher in priority. I think that if you were to get an interest, obviously, on the part of Amazon, you would certainly have an even higher priority of building that line. I don't think there's any question about it.
Can you imagine?
I think we've got some good sites that are available, too. We've talked about
the city of Amazon.
Jeff's house.
Don't we have an Amazon?
You're a resident of Stonecrest, aren't you?
I am indeed.
They could take your house.
Well, okay. I live in Amazon, Georgia.
You live in Amazon, Georgia. All right, let's go to some other topics real quickly. Eric Holder, the former Attorney General, and his merry band of radicals has sued the state of Georgia over the redistricting of 2 legislative districts controlled narrowly by Republicans. This never ends. The Democrats are going to persist until anybody, stoned or otherwise, can register to vote on Election Day and cast a ballot, regardless of where they live, regardless of their felon status, whatever.
Well, it's always decided, as we know, in the courts. And the Supreme Court actually during this session is going to be listening to a case. How far do you go with regard to quote-unquote political gerrymandering? What is gerrymandering? It's you're trying to fit your district to help elect your guy from your party. The Democrats have done it for years. The Republicans do it all over the country for years. Yeah, and so both parties do it.
Well, Republicans did it legally in Georgia. It was Roy Barnes's plan that was struck down.
Right, but this is the here and this is the now. The point is, the courts have ruled that they have to. You can't just willy-nilly break up neighborhoods and geographical areas. So both parties have to be careful keeping geographical and neighborhoods intact. Communities of interest. That's right. And so that's going to be the key in these court cases. This is going to happen, you know, from now on until time immemorial. Both parties are trying to get a leg up on the other.
Yeah.
All right. You know, we don't have time for this, but it is interesting that when we do news, we joke about sports, but all of a sudden we have an actual scandal involving the Atlanta Braves. Phil and I joked about this the other day. It is amazing that it sticks right out into the news, and we don't really know what's happened because it isn't subject to the usual sort of press inquiry. There will be. But John Coppolella, the very young general manager of the Atlanta Braves, the author of The Rebuild, is out, I guess, for tampering with international prospects, huh?
It is international prospects. In fact, the Wall Street Journal, I have to say, has been doing a better job at covering this than maybe some of the local media here. And it has to do with, unfortunately, we talked about bribery earlier, trying to get players in here illegally.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for this segment. When we return, we're going to ask a very simple question. What's next for Tom Price? Stay with us.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And before that, I better deliver on what I promised. Tom Price, who did not make our broadcast last week because of some timing reasons, of course, is out as Cabinet Secretary for Health and Human Services. Just a finger in the wind here, folks. Watch Tom Price. He just might run for governor. Think about it. We'll see. All right, Alexis, winners and losers.
Okay, I've got a bunch. I'll do as many as I can fit in. The AIDS Healthcare Foundation Southern Bureau last week collected 48, in 2 days, they collected 50 generators and got a charter plane and got them delivered to Puerto Rico to help some of the health centers, to assist some of the hospitals. So they're a winner for that. First Congregational Church celebrates its 150th anniversary, and they had U.S. Senator Kamala Harris as the speaker, and she was brilliant, and so she needs to be, we look out for her even in 2020. Governor Deal announced the recipients of the 2017 Georgia Governor Awards for Arts and Humanities. There are several people on the list, but we got Valerie Boyd, the art program at Hartsville, Virginia Hepner, Kenny Leon. So I'm doing a roll call, and y'all have to go look them up. Go look them up. And Lois Reitzes. So we congratulate them.
Oh, she of the Velvet Voice.
That's right. And then finally, the Arthur Blank Family Foundation funded $1.5 million for scholarships for pharmacy students at University of Georgia. And they also sponsored a seminar with the Atlanta Press Club and the Columbia Journalism Review.
Thank you. Jeff.
That's a lot. Wow.
No, we got to go to Jeff. Come on.
Well, Jason Larry, we mentioned him in the city of Amazon. I hope that actually works for them. The Atlanta Housing Authority announced a partnership with Comcast, and they actually gave some laptops to some senior citizens and trying to bridge that digital divide with seniors. That's a great program. Catherine Buell is a winner for that. Obviously, Keisha Lance Bottoms for surging for a great TV ad for raising over $500,000. And seems to be getting an awful lot lot of
million.
momentum at the right time. Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Phil.
My winner is B.J. Pack. He's a former state legislator, and he was confirmed by the Senate as the new U.S. Attorney for this Atlanta area, and I predict he will step up the probe into corruption in Atlanta. And I've got another winner, Stan Wise, longtime Public Service Commission member. He actually is the epitome, in my opinion, of a good public servant. He balanced the needs of utilities versus the needs of consumers. And also my winner is, two winners actually, Governor Deal and State School Superintendent Richard Woods. They are now going back and rethinking this year-end testing that we have always talked about that really doesn't help a lot. They're going to have a task force, and they're going to have new recommendations on how we do this testing.
My loser, John Lewis, a perfect example of overspeak on the left. John Lewis saying of the Las Vegas shooting and Republicans, at what price blood, essentially calling them murderers. Of course, John Lewis would never look at the 500 dead in Chicago. And finally, the Moody Blues are up for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Okay. What an injustice that the Moody Blues aren't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And finally, Indigenous Peoples Day. That's what they're calling it in Los Angeles, not Columbus Day. See you next week on the Georgia Gang.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.